An error. Yay, we are live. I got a little error alert and got scared. Sound like Will Smith. I got in one little fight. My mama got scared. All right, so I am Michelle Talbert. We are here. That means it's the second Wednesday of the month. That means we are here for the Unchamber. And if you are watching this, you're on Facebook or YouTube. We're streaming to our YouTube channel today in honor of our special guest, who I can't wait to introduce to you. And I'm just super excited to introduce Super Joe. But just a couple of things before we get going. I am Michelle Talbert. If you're not familiar with me, I am the founder of Her Power Moves as well as Her Power Space. We are a woman forward, men welcoming, co-working podcast, event venue space that does virtual office services. We help small businesses look big, and we're located here in Lauderhill, Florida, Broward County, USA. Also, this programming comes from the Unchamber. The Unchamber is an organization that I created back around the pandemic because we had so many folks in our community who were not getting access to the kind of information to keep their business afloat. The PPP had run out of money, and so I created the No Small Business Left Behind Summit series as a way to ensure that you got the information you needed to keep your business above water and to thrive even after the pandemic ended, which we're kind of still in it, semi in it. I don't even know what's going on, but we're keeping the show going, right? And so every second Wednesday via the Unchamber community, you have the opportunity to hear from amazing guests. We've had presentations on everything from building your community to copywriting and really enticing people through your email marketing to the nuts and bolts of how to use Canva, including to create presentations and QR codes. Who knew? Did you catch any of those? If you haven't caught them and you are already in our community, then you are good to go because you have access to our library from our fireside chats with Gwen Jameer last year about how she sends emails every day of the week to her list and how that benefits her, to the conversation we're getting ready to have today with Super Joe Pardo, which I'm super excited about. If you are not yet a member, you can head over to the unchamber.com, the unchambercommunity.com, and get more information. I'm going to put that across the screen for you so that you can go ahead and head over there and get full access. This video will be up for 24 hours and then it will go away, only to be seen by folks who are actually in our community. All right, so you are here because you are looking, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, please drop your comments. And if you're watching the replay, say replay, and I will still see your questions. You are probably interested in growing your platform, growing your YouTube, growing your reach, which is what 90% of our community tells me is your need with regard to marketing. So I'm really excited to bring Super Joe Pardo on today because he is a profit strategist. And he brings a series of strategies, applications, and execution planning to every entrepreneur team or business that he works with. He's the founder of the Super Joe Pardo Show on YouTube and the Independent Podcast Conference. He focuses on putting the right methods into the best practices in order to bring about personalized solutions for each client. Joe focuses on designing individual solutions to accelerate growth with each client. And it is a team effort and not an inspired template approach that has allowed his journey to help the wildest array of businesses at all levels. I'm going to bring Joe on the screen. Super Joe,
What's
how are
up,
you?
Michelle? So good to see you.
You too. You got the bell going.
I
You
got,
got all
I got,
the
I got
bells
the bell.
and whistles, literally, right? So, Joe, we go back a little ways, right?
We do 2015, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
That was the year.
That
The year.
was. It
We
was.
got to spend, for those of you who don't know, I started podcasting back in 2009. I launched my first podcast, and I love podcasting. And so, just through serendipity, once I moved down here to South Florida, got connected with our local podcast chapter, which enabled me to get connected with Podcast Movement, right? It was just coming around. And the one of the co-founders of Podcast Movement, Jared Easley, reached out to me and he was like, Michelle, I think I want to put you in touch with this guy, Joe Pardo. I think you guys can really host and have some good synergies and host what was called PMX, which was like TEDx Talks. And Joe and I obviously prepped we had like almost 20 people speak that day. It was something crazy. We were on our feet for like 12, 13 hours hosting these talks and keeping the crowd engaged. And it was really like baptism by fire. He is like, we're like in a fraternity together. It's just the two of us.
And so many of those speakers too, right? So many of those speakers that spoke that day, or people that was in that room that day, so many of them are notable in the community still to this day. And it's really power. It shows the power of like showing up, getting involved, and taking note of who's around you. And that, yeah, we had such an amazing day.
And that was when I found out, because he was only sharing it secretly with a few people, that he and his wife were pregnant with their first child.
Yeah.
Time flies. You now have 2 children. You've just celebrated 9 years of marriage, just like a week or so ago, right?
Yeah.
Really
I forgot that I knew that then. Yeah, because it was August of 2015 or August or July of 20. It would have been, I think, August of 2015. So it was still very new news at that point. I forgot.
Exactly.
I forgot that was the case, because
that's what I'm saying. Like, we bonded,
that, dude. Yeah.
All right, so Super Joe. All right. Aside from the fact that we have been knowing each other from way back when, been on each other's podcasts, have consoled each other in tears and big upped each other through happy moments, talk to us a little bit about your journey. I gave them the official bio, but tell us a little bit about your journey. And then I'm going to let you talk to the folks directly as well. But just tell us a little bit what you got about.
Yeah. So I grew up here in the Philadelphia area. And I grew up in a family business that was really just getting off the ground not long after I was born. And when I was about 6 years old, I started to come around and, sweeping the floors, checking inventory, counting inventory, that kind of stuff. And that, steamrolled into working in the warehouse throughout the years, throughout my grade school, high school journey. And I really love tech. Like my family grew up under trucks. I grew up in front of computers. So by the age of like 10 or so, I had like my first blog back in like 96, 97. And I just love computers. So I ended up becoming the IT director at the company and working my way up through the ranks, sales, working on the counter, working with customers, looking up parts for big rig trucks. That's what the whole industry, the whole business was based around. And so I was able to take all that experience and eventually worked my way up to being the COO of the company and developing processes and an algorithm for the inventory and really trying to modernize everything. And a few years so in 2014 I left, but a few years earlier I started to decide I think I want to do something else in my life, but I wasn't sure what. I didn't go to school. I mean, I went to school for a couple semesters, but really I didn't have a degree, so I didn't have like a real path to anything really. And ultimately in 2014 I decided, in 2013 I made the decision. I left in 2014, still didn't really know what I was going to do. I was going back to school, and podcasting kind of fell in my lap because I'm also a DJ. So one of my first passions was, I wanted to be a child psychologist from a young age, helping other kids going through divorce like I was from the age of 6. By 10 or 11, I wanted to DJ. I didn't get to realize that until about 17 years old when I got to drive and got to go to the different clubs and the bars and meet with the DJs and get the skills and go do competitions and stuff like that. So I had my first DJ album coming out in 2014, and I was doing promotions on podcasts because I had been listening to podcasts going back to 2005, all Disney podcasts. I'm a big Disney head. And so I was doing these interviews, and it was like, I was on a flight to Disney World about a month after I left the company, and it was like, hey, I showed my friend, I said, hey, what other podcasts can I go jump on to Disney podcasts to promote this Disney mix album that I did? And he's like, "Oh, you should listen to this show." And at the time, he referenced Entrepreneur on Fire while we were on the plane, and I was like, "Oh, I no, I hadn't heard of this. This was beginning of 2014, almost middle of 2014, so it was still a relatively new thing." And honestly, I've listened to one episode of John's show in the year since, but I had this. I didn't never looked at podcasting from a let's have a conversation. It was always like we're gonna have a roundtable discussion of Disney, and that was how, or retro video games, as all of my friends were listening to podcasts about. And I was like, so I'm on the plan, like I could do a show, I could interview people in business. I've been around business all my life. I have this vast background and a network of people. And I was like, but I know a lot more people in their dreams. So on that plane, when the plane landed, I already had the domain name, the Twitter handle, the Facebook page registered before we got to the rental car. And I had a list of 200 people, or like 150 to 200 people that I knew I wanted to, some I knew I could get connections with to interview. And 2 weeks later, I had my first episode out, and I was off and running. I went from one episode a week to the second week. I went to 3 episodes a week, and then 5 episodes a week.
What was the name of that podcast?
So that was called Dreamers Podcast, and I ran that until 2017 when after I won the Best Business Podcast of the Year award from podcastawards.com. I was like, maybe I should change the name. So I'm like talking to my friends, and they're like, Joe, I love your show. I love you. But if it wasn't you and I didn't know you, I probably would just skip over it because of the name, even though it was Dreamers Podcast, on business lessons from those that live their dreams. And it's like, well, that's cool. So like, let's change it. So I changed up the name, and ultimately, after a couple of name shifts, I came to just the Super Joe Pardo Show. Really leaned into the whole Super Joe Pardo moniker, which my friend gave me back in 2006. In fact, you can see the original image on my website, on my About page, that shows he drew it back in 2006. I was like, oh, that's cute. That's awesome. I was going through a really tough time in my life. And he, did that for me. I shoved it in my desk. And then in 2014, 2015, when the company was sold, I pulled it out and was like, oh, wow, I wonder if that domain's available. So I registered a domain. 2 years later, I finally make the decision to switch everything over to that. And it's been going strong ever since. So switch directly, because I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and that's what part of what the Dreamers Podcast was all about: figuring out, inspiring other people, but inspiring myself to figure out, like, what is it I really want to do with my life. And ultimately, I landed on helping other business owners. I mean, I had some business clients right out of the gate when I left the company. But I didn't pursue it as hard as I probably should have out of the gate, because there's, Michelle, there's a lot of fugazi people in our industry, and I didn't want to be a part of that, and so I've gone back and forth over the years. But a good friend of mine, Samantha Riley, and I had a conversation back in middle of 2017, and she's like, Joe, if you don't do this, other people will, and you have the responsibility of helping these people, and as well as she and I were talking, and it's like, if we're not out there preaching the right stuff based on experience, based on knowledge, based on other people's experience from the countless interviews that I've done with other entrepreneurs from all over the planet, who else is going to? People that are just spouting out nonsense, leading people down a wrong path for the wrong reasons on the wrong journey.
Right.
And I'm like, that you're right. And I had to like suck it up a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to pursue a path that I kind of deviated from for a little while there. And yeah, so I've leaned heavily into it, and in the beginning or the end of last year, I made the decision I was going to go heavy into YouTube. And there was a few years where I thought, like, obviously I started up the Independent Podcast Conference, and
right.
I didn't want to leave podcasting behind, but I was like, YouTube's a heck of a lot easier, because like I can make money right from that without having to, go and get sponsors and like do all that stuff. And,
right.
It's not the
podcasting world. So you got to talk to the people. They're coming in to talk to you and hear from you about how you exploded your YouTube channel and the amount of viewers you went. I mean, it was like a skyrocket. So I can't wait to share this story. So
it's kind of crazy.
And let you talk to the people. Mahala, we see you. Thanks for being here. For those of you who are watching live, please drop your questions in the post comment box on Facebook. You will have to give StreamYard your permission for us to be able to see your name. And I will be monitoring the chat for questions. And Joe is going to do a little presentation to us to talk about how he exploded his YouTube now that he's made that pivot and narrowed down on it and drilled down on it and said, this is where I'm supposed to be. All right, Joe, take it away. Super Joe Pardo.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. It is an honor to be here. I really, really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments down here, over here, down here, over there, wherever they are. Drop them in. I would be happy to answer them as I go through the talk here. But yeah, so I wanted to make the pivot into YouTube because I felt like there was an opportunity there for me to be able to monetize in a way that didn't require me to pitch a bunch of other people's products and things like that. It's something I've always wanted to keep close to vest is what I promote, mostly being my own products, my own merch, my own, books and things like that, and events. And instead of trying to affiliate link everything, because to me, your name is the most important thing that you have, your name and your word, and it's all on you to make sure that you're protecting those assets, right? Like no matter what you do, it's so important that you protect the assets that you have, which is your name and your word. So when I made the decision to go harder into YouTube, this was my second attempt at doing it. I made an attempt back in 2017, which was a little, I think, a little too early for in the business space. At the time, looking back at it, I was doing daily videos. I was doing a vlog every single day. So I was, I'm filming myself, doing kind of some crazy editing and things like that. And I was doing it daily, but each vlog was a business lesson. So wherever I was at the aquarium, I'm at the zoo, I'm at the store, I'm at IKEA, and I'm making these videos. And the thing was, there's only so much editing that one person can do in a day, right? I'm not a professional editor, though I did get really good at editing by spending 100 days in a row doing a video every single day. And looking back, there's a lot of things that I feel like I could have done differently and better. Because when you're competing, like if you're like, oh, I'm going to go and do the YouTube thing, or I'm going to do the TikTok thing, there's literally like kids, 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are just sitting there all day trying to create the next big, edit or next thing that stands out. So you're not going to necessarily stand out with that unless you're an awesome editor or you're willing to pay an awesome editor to do something like that. So you got to come with, two things, right? You need to be yourself. Number one, first and foremost, be yourself. Be the person that you are through and through, right? It makes it so much easier. Trying to fake, fake different things about what you have or what you're able to do or what you're, what kind of life you're trying to live or portray does not make sense. It won't make sense to the audience in most cases. And it won't make sense to you as the time goes by, because YouTube content creation in general is it's a marathon. It's not easy over time. Anybody can come up with one great idea, right? But now what's the second idea? What's the third idea? What's the fourth idea? And to be able to come up with something, even just one video or one piece of content every 2 weeks, it's tough, right? And not everything's going to hit the way you want it to. So I'm a big proponent of just being yourself, letting your experience, letting your as Doug DeMiro on YouTube says, your quirks and features shine right through. Anybody that's a Doug DeMiro fan knows he reviews cars, and he always talks about the quirks and features. And it's so important that that what you're putting out there is genuine to you so that you can replicate it. Like one example is, I mean, we have two little kids here now at the house, and it's very exhausting. Not every night is a good sleep night. I have constantly have bags under my eyes, right? I could wear makeup for that, but the way I see it is that's not who I am, and I don't want to be in a position where it's like, oh, somebody sees me without the makeup on, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? So, to me, I think you have to lean in heavily to what you feel comfortable and confident to. I'm not saying you shouldn't wear makeup. What I'm saying is I'm not wearing makeup. I wasn't already wearing makeup. It's not a thing that I'm going to do especially as an independent content creator. And now, of course, the lawnmower is going next to me here because they wait until right this second to do it. But that's some of the things that we do deal with as content creators. Hopefully, it's not too loud in the mic. So yeah, being yourself will speak volumes to an audience. It enables them to trust you more and trust what you're saying more than holding up a lie or holding up a stretched reality or truth or something to that effect. I'd prefer to kind of creep up the charts rather than like doing something that isn't real. Look, a story I can share. When I was getting started with the podcast and all like the business coaching and stuff like that, I was talking to my dad about it, and he's like, oh, you should do some photo shoots out with my cars and the fancy cars, and I'm like, well, that's cool, but they're not mine. That's not where I live. That's not like I live in the house I grew up in. Unapologetically, I love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors. And I plan to live here as long as, the taxes in Jersey don't push me out, which may happen at some point. But for the foreseeable future, I'm here to stay. And to me, that I think speaks more volume than to be like, hey, like, let's do a photo shoot in front of some make-believe, house I rented or some cars I rented or something, and make people think that faking it till you make it. I think if one person has shown that, you don't have to do that is a guy named Graham Stephan on YouTube, where he's a 20. Well, he was, when he got started with YouTube, he was like in his mid 20s as a real estate agent in LA, specifically like selling like Beverly Hills. In fact, he was on that show that is what was that? The Sunset, Selling Sunset or something like that. His agent, the agency that he worked for, is based in that show. So he took all of what he is, likes, acts like, the experiences, takes it for exactly who he is, and puts it into those videos, which started out in real estate but ultimately ended up in real estate and stocks, and borders on news, up to date news, and sometimes cryptocurrency and things like that. But he doesn't wear the expensive watch and chains and have he's got a big house now, but this is years and years after the fact. And even with that, he actually made a video explaining how just by moving from LA to California to Nevada, he was able to basically have a house that like paid for itself in several different ways. So and he's known for being cheap and frugal, if you will, and things like that. So like people will respond better to that, even knowing like, hey, dude's a millionaire. Dude could have all the cars that he wants in the world. Like he could have all the cars, he could do whatever he wanted to do, but he doesn't. He still continues to live that frugal lifestyle, which he admittedly has said, hey, it actually kind of weighs on him, because he's like, I want to go to sushi and it not be there's a picture of us there back in 2015. It not be out of character. So like trying to find that middle ground is super important. And as long as you know yourself well enough, you can put yourself out there, be yourself, and you will much more easily connect with the people that that ultimately are going to be your tribe and be the people who get you and support you and comment back and watch every single video and do all those super fan things. So be yourself. Don't be afraid. Be unapologetic about it. And don't waver, right? When you start to waver, like, oh, I feel this way, but then all of a sudden, like, your guest comes on and they're talking and they start talking, you might start to change how you feel a little bit, but, or you can at least understand where somebody else is coming from. But by you just flip-flopping every single time a guest starts talking about something else and you're flip-flopping on what you should be not taking, or what you should be taking a stand on because that's what you believe, and should be able to defend, that's not going to help, because people aren't going to like the flip-flopping. I could give you a whole story about a local broadcaster who I love. I love watching him. I've gotten to meet him, have a great conversation with him. But when I started to realize that he just flip-flops every time his co-host says something, it's just like, wow, I can't take anything he says seriously. Going along the lines of taking things seriously, one thing that you have to take seriously if you want your YouTube channel to explode is your analytics. Get really comfortable with looking at those graphs. Get really comfortable with the hard decisions that you're going to have to make. The number one thing that I can say, other than having a really good idea when I decided to jump into YouTube, make the transition into YouTube first rather than podcasting first, is getting comfortable looking at those analytics and making the hard decisions. A hard decision I had to make was saying, okay, I want my click-through rate to go up. How can I make my click-through rate go up? I tried all the things that the big names do. They have the face or all these, the YouTube face. And what I found was when I took my face off of those thumbnails and it was just the pictures of like a more simplistic thumbnail, all of a sudden my click-through rate went through the roof on many of the videos. So I've redone my thumbnails on all my videos, and there's several hundreds at this point. Like, I think I'm up to 450 videos on the channel at the moment. But I've redone my thumbnails at least 3 or 4 times. I've gone through and redid them. And I don't know that that's always the best thing to do. I think that if you have a system down, it makes sense for you to be able to go and recreate them. Because once I figured out that there was a better way to do the thumbnails, that was important for me to do that because I already had all this search traffic coming to the past videos. And once I was able to up those click-through rates, it just made the channel go, it just started, everything just got another boost and another boost and another boost and another boost going, riding wave after wave after wave. But that was tough for me, right? I wanted to believe that, having 500,000 impressions, where impressions are when somebody sees your thumbnail, that counts as an impression, whether they click on it or not is part of the click-through rate. But having that impression, it's like, oh wow, like 500,000 people have seen my face. How cool is that? But what I'd really would like to have is more people clicking through, and YouTube, so that YouTube says, "Ooh, let's serve it to more people," because more people are clicking through on that thumbnail, right, and that title. And I've gone through with titles too. Once I figured out the formula that really worked for me and the audience I was going for, I had to go through and edit all those thumbnails or all those titles. I've even edited my descriptions and my keywords, and gone through because I have a specific type of show that lends itself to being found as well as recommended. So I wanted to believe that by having my face on there, people would get used to seeing my face. They would click on my face. And I even intentionally went out of my way to make sure that I was only using like 7 different images of me, like doing this, and it wasn't unique it wasn't unique. I would just cycle through depending on what the image that I was reacting to from the video that I was reacting to, showed, and kind of in relation to what the title would be, the sticking point of the title. So when I made that, when I did a test, you always got to be testing. It's all about the scientific process, right? Test, look at the results, see if it's big enough, then make a decision to try. So try, like, the A/B testing and things can do that, but you can do A/B testing on your own, right? And I would say don't be afraid to try something that's popular. Like, you get one popular video, like I would use that video as my test bed to test out new thumbnails. Why? Because I could get the answer that I was looking for a lot faster and clearer there. If it, it's not working out, let me just put the thumbnail back. Let me put the title back to the way it was, rather than waiting for videos that weren't as popular, weren't being as searched as much and stuff like that to like wait around and see if it made a difference. And the fact of the matter is that it might not be being shown enough to really know if it's going to make a difference or not. Oh, hey there, Michelle. Yeah.
Hi. Can I pop in right here? Because I would like to stay here for a second, because I think that this is a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Now, you just said testing and looking at thumbnails. Do you suggest that people choose one platform and just go really deep on it? Because I know for a lot of people, they're like, oh God, that's a lot of time. You're talking about analytics, click-through rates, right? So explain a little bit. What's a click-through rate?
So people see the thumbnail and the title and they click on it. So what percentage of the impressions to people actually got to the video playing?
And then you said search traffic. So are you saying that people are searching for the topics that you're talking about on your show, and then you come up? Because Google, as we know, Google is number one, and I think YouTube is number two in terms of searching just generically on the web, right?
Yep.
So you're saying that you use different keywords and that there's strategies that you're using behind the scenes as well? Or are they just searching and it'll pop up based on your title of your show?
So I will get to that part at that is my fourth point.
Okay. All right.
But the keyword thing is it's a piece of it. It's not the whole pie.
Okay.
The topic is more important, right? It depends on if you're going for search, like how to tie shoes, right? That's tough, because like there's one video that's probably been there forever and has millions and millions and millions of views. In fact, last time I searched for it, because I have little ones and needed to watch a video on how to tie shoes again, it came up and it actually jumped, like it jumped like to 1:09 into over 2-minute video, like, because it wanted to show right where the answer was in one particular video that already had millions of views. So. Targeting for search traffic, I think it's a mixed bag, and it's tough. I think it's good in some ways when you get started, so that you could build an audience of like, so not your audience, but like an audience for YouTube to look at and be like, oh, Michelle watches videos. Like, well, we have like 1,000 other Michelles that all kind of watch similar type stuff. Let's serve that thumbnail up to them and see if they happen to like it and click on it.
Okay.
Right. And then, but it goes so much deeper than that. That's just one aspect of the whole thing. Go ahead.
And so that's to my first question. Is it possible to be extremely successful on YouTube without having to go so deep? In other words, if you're still on Instagram and you're still doing Facebook, how do you manage expectations? This is actually my first question.
Yeah.
How do you manage your own growth expectations, and how should we be managing our growth expectations regarding virality and just generally building out an audience on YouTube? Like, I have 70 subscribers, and I'm fine with that, right? I'm not pushing my YouTube channel hard, but someone might want to have more than 70 subscribers, but not want that to be their only platform, nor have the time to be changing the thumbnails on 450 videos. So how do we strike that balance and achieve those goals, or how do you manage those expectations with regard to growth?
So, okay, to answer the I don't want to change 400, 450 thumbnails. You don't have to. What you need to do is you need to identify which are your most popular videos, right? So you can go into the advanced analytics and pull up the top 50. Sorry, people yelling and the
You're
3-year-old yelling in the other room.
do you have to go like separate the kids?
No. She's well, my daughter's in school still for a few more hours, but no. So what you do is you go and you look in the advanced analytics and you look at like, okay, what's my top 50 videos here? So then you go and you change those top 50 videos and see what happens, right? And then later on you can go and make those changes if you have, if they're all similar typed videos or formatted videos or like under an umbrella, then you can start to like trickle it out over time. But the way I see it is it's like you've already put the work in. So like if you can, so like I use Crello for all of my thumbnails. I don't use Photoshop. I think it's kind of overblown. I think certain niches will be better served using a Photoshop or something like that. But I think for depending on what you're doing, I think it's fine to use something like a Crello or a Canva.
Yeah, I was gonna
to
say
build.
we use Canva, but spell that other word you just said.
Crello, CRELLO.com.
Okay, I'll drop it in the comments. Just so
There's an
people see
AppSumo
that.
deal. I think they might have come back with another AppSumo deal. It was a lifetime deal, so I was like, oh yeah, $50, sure. take my
Easy.
money, please.
Easy. Okay, cool. Well,
So
I'll hop out and let you continue.
no. Hold on, because
okay.
so you were asking, is it possible to build multiple? So or not have to go so deep. You don't have to go into. To me, from what I've seen, I go into the advanced analytics very sparingly. There's people that are doing it much deeper than I am, and I think when you're, it's like when you have a question that's deeper than the surface level of like click-through rate, impressions, the views, the duration in which they're watching, and things of that nature. That's where advanced analytics come in. You go, you dive in, and you start to find the answer, right? But on the surface level, I think there's a lot you can do with the surface level stuff that's right in your studio analytics. Now the way I see it, the way I personally utilize the other social medias is I use those currently, and this might change, but I use those to push traffic to YouTube. And then from YouTube, I use that to push traffic to my website. And the reason is because I want people that are willing to listen to me for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Those are the people that are going to be more likely to want to buy from me or work with me, in my opinion, at least, and starting to see in the experience. So the thing about Facebook is Facebook doesn't like YouTube. Right, it's no secret. You post your.
I would never put a YouTube link in.
Don't post a YouTube link there ever.
No, ever.
Talk about your YouTube channel. Exactly. Talk about the success. Talk about, I post those negative. You've seen those negative comments. I know you've seen them. Right. These ridiculous comments. I post that because it's a marketing play to get people to go and tell YouTube, hey, I'm looking for Super Joe Pardo. Right. Oh, look, people are looking for Super Joe Pardo, right? And they're more invested versus clicking a link, watching 10 seconds, say, oh, there's Joe. Cool. Click. Now I'm out. And then you just told YouTube, hey, guess what? You didn't really like that video. Maybe the next person won't like it either. Maybe we have a problem with Super Joe Pardo, and it starts to, do a barrel roll into a death spiral. So don't, very rarely will I post direct links to any videos that I do. On Facebook. Plus YouTube or Facebook doesn't really want to share them out anyway. So you find ways to talk about what you're doing without actually giving. And then if people want the link, you can always send them the link, or I would say like comment and replies probably is deep enough that YouTube or Facebook won't, at least what I've seen, won't destroy your post as far as the reach it'll get, things like that. So yeah, utilize the social media as like the very, very top to funnel people into the YouTube and then funnel down into going to your website. And I'll tell you though, from what I've seen, and this is from other people I've read, YouTube's conversion rate is like 2.5%.
Okay, so let
So
that
it's very low compared
That's
to
the
like an Instagram.
conversation that I wanted to have with you, because
Yep.
I don't think that YouTube, like for a lot of us, will use Instagram. When Facebook did whatever it did, and it's doing something weird today too, by the way. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but Facebook has been a little wonky today.
Mm.
When it went crazy last week, of course, all of us as email marketers were like, hey, 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 are you sending emails to your email list? Do you own the people who you get in front of, et cetera, right? But most of us still use social media as a way to push people to really have a personal relationship with us. That's a bit personal, meaning business, a
Yeah.
direct business relationship with us. So manage expectations with regard to YouTube. Now you're saying, look, YouTube is actually not the media to use if you're trying to necessarily get people to your website or to be your next consulting client. Then what is it? Is it just about building awareness and then people find you elsewhere? What do you think is the biggest point or benefit to having a YouTube channel, aside from vanity metrics or anything like that? Business speaking, what's the
So
best advantage of having a YouTube channel?
I'm going to write down vanity metrics there, because there is a metric that's 1,000 times more important than subscribers. Um,
All right.
oh, you there? Oh no, did we lose you, Michelle? All right. So, what's the I'll just say this. What's the value? The value is having a long form conversation with your audience. The value is getting ad revenue from your from Google, right? That's the value there. And I would say that 2.5% doesn't sound great, but with the reach that YouTube brings to the table, what is that? Oh,
Ethernet,
oh, the
just in
Ethernet
case
cable.
something went really weird just now. Always
Um,
prepared.
so I think the value really comes in with YouTube ad revenue, being able to be in the second largest search engine out there, right? And I think at scale, 2.5% doesn't sound great, but I think 2.5% is pretty is actually, in the grand scheme of things, really valuable, because I think in my opinion, the people that are willing to watch, again, 20, 30-minute videos, gain that trust, and make you part of their daily life, versus like whatever Instagram is. I don't want to say here today, gone tomorrow, but like, let's face it, Instagram is not even photos anymore. They're like, oh yeah, we're all about the
Real.
video, and it's like,
Yep.
Okay, so
Right.
is everybody else. Congratulations,
Right.
like,
Welcome to the party.
yeah. So like, what's gonna make that different? And I think from a video standpoint, I would personally rather have 1,000 views on YouTube than 1,000 views on Facebook.
Why?
Because Facebook views, I mean, unless they've changed, it's like 3 seconds of like, I was scrolling, I stopped, watched 3 or 4, 5 seconds of your video, and then kept on scrolling, right? With YouTube, they're making a choice to watch the video, which I'll tell you, one of the things that was really getting on my nerves was one of the channels that I watch with my wife is going to sound silly, but Cinnamon Toast Ken is his name.
Cinnamon Toast Can.
Yes, he's a good friend of PewDiePie's,
Okay.
who's the largest single independent YouTuber on the platform. And they would do these stingers in the front of the videos, like, you're like, oh, here's the craziest part of the video, and then they go into the introduction, and then they get into the video. So like, after like a while, I started just fast forwarding, because I don't want to see the same part of the video twice. I already made the conscious decision to click on said video, right? Versus like, oh, I was scrolling and I need something to grab my attention and then go into it because I'm just scrolling by, right? And yeah, so I would say, and what's funny is, after I started the more I started doing that, I guess like a month or so later, Cinnamon Toast Ken dropped the stinger. And I was watching somebody else talk about YouTube editing who edits for Logan Paul, and he was like, just stop the stinger thing, just go straight to the video, because you're adding 20 seconds to a video that you're gonna watch again just like 4 or 5 minutes later anyway.
Right.
If it's an hour-long video, I
That's
kind of
different.
get it.
Yeah.
If it's a 40-minute video, yeah, all right. Like when you start talking about longer form stuff, but when you're talking about a 10-minute video, I'm not going to forget what I just saw. Like,
Well,
I don't want to see it.
right.
I made this decision.
And some of that is also podcast related, right? Because we'll take a real juicy snippet of the podcast and put it right before we did our intro reel, right?
And
So
some
that people
do.
will be like, oh, that's
Some I do
really
listen
juicy,
to.
right? So, but the YouTube, so that's a good point for folks who are listening. Remember, as you're switching between media, you really have to be sure that you're staying native to the needs of the people who are there. So
Yep.
podcast listeners may not be the same people who are YouTube watchers. And so you need to speak with them differently, just like I have a different conversation on Instagram than I do on Facebook or Twitter. Right.
Yeah.
So being very clear about who's there and how they like to consume their information that you're sharing. Oh, that's great. Okay. So
I mean,
you said,
yeah. So the stinger, like I said, I don't do it. For a while there, I thought I might do it, but then I was like, I had to go through all this trouble editing my videos, and the way I shoot my videos, it's mostly done live on
right.
like in real time, edited by my Stream Deck here on my desk as we're doing it. So I don't personally like to do it because I don't want to spend all my time editing. I want to spend my time creating and helping, other super entrepreneurs.
And let's talk about that. So
yeah.
your videos are specifically focused on helping entrepreneurs become what? Super entrepreneurs?
Yes.
With Super Joe Pardo?
Yes.
I expect my shirt is in the mail. So how then did you market it from that perspective to catch the eye? Because I'll tell you two things. One, I'm announcing this here. I've never told anybody outside of my shower, which means nobody. I turned 52 in December. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? 52 weeks of lessons with Michelle. And that's going to launch on my birthday, December 13th. Every week, I'm going to share a lesson from life and business for 52 weeks, right? I'm going to do that until my 53rd birthday. And I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to leverage, obviously, YouTube and other platforms to share these little weekly video snippets. I already have my first few lined up. I'm really excited about it, right? But that's a very specific reason I want to use YouTube, to have these weekly snippets. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest models for that type of way of doing things, one is Darren Hardy, right? The former editor-in-chief of Success Magazine. And the other one is Evan Carmichael, right? Evan Carmichael, with his Believe Nation, has crushed YouTube by sharing out not even his own words at the beginning, right? He did a great job editing the people who we love to listen to, the Will Smiths and the Oprah Winfreys and the Denzel Washingtons, and created this whole Believe Nation. So how important is it that we're very clear about what our expectations and intentions are with the YouTube channel? And then how far can we really take it?
Well, okay. So so here's the thing. Let's jump to my last thing about building.
I know,
the avatar.
I'm forcing you.
It's okay. Let's jump to that, right? Build your avatar. The number one thing that is, and I kind of touched on it before, is thinking about the topic, right? If you want the topic is the topic searched, right? So you can use tools. I use TubeBuddy. I use Google Analytics or Google Trends, google.com/trends. TubeBuddy is a huge one. To help you figure out like what's a good topic for you and what the amount of search traffic is going to those topics. But it's tough because, and I've seen this over the years with trying to do, things that are searched and searchable, and it's, you talked about keywords earlier, and keywords are great, but it really comes down to like, what is the topic, right? Who are we serving with that topic, and what problem are we solving with that topic? sending a good demographic of people is really helpful. So like Michelle, in your case, you have the ability to send her power moves to it, the unchamber to it. And if you through email, you can send people to those videos. All of a sudden, like I said, YouTube knows, like, hey, this is the videos that they're watching this video. They watch all these other videos. We know who watches all those videos. Now we can start to like build an audience, a makeshift audience, and start doing some tests to see who we should be serving these videos up to. I think one of the hardest parts is when you get started. I see somebody said, I want to start my own YouTube channel in the comments, is when you don't have that audience to send there. Right? If you have like zero audience, it's very hard. And I can tell you from starting and I point behind me because me and my daughter were doing, and you've probably seen these, the Minecraft videos, the Minecraft live streams and stuff. And she has her own channel, Ava Enschers, and it has a handful of views. Probably a lot of them are from her watching them on the TV in the living room. But it's still pretty difficult to come up with those topics that an audience might want to see. But that's why it's more important than like just figuring out what keyword to hit on, right? The keyword is like the clue, and then you have to figure out like, okay, like what part of this keyword is underserved. So an example might be inspirational quotes. Well, there's tons of inspirational quote videos out there, right? But it's like, okay, inspirational quotes for people over 50. Is that served? Is anybody searching for that? Being in search is a blessing and a curse. And it's something that even my channel has run into. It's like having the search traffic is great, but search traffic isn't an audience really so much as it's just giving a potential for like finding more audience from that. So targeting search in the beginning might be more powerful, a powerful way to get started if you have zero. You don't have an email list or something to be able to send a pretty targeted type of group to that content. But it ultimately is going to be, it's tough, right? Like here's my example, me. So when I decided to get started with YouTube seriously on my second go around, which was back in like November of last year, I was like, I'm watching all these Cinnamon Toast Ken videos with my wife. I'm watching the PewDiePie reaction videos with my wife. Very few people are doing anything like that in the business space. I want to take this format and take it to the business space. So, I always say you can either build your own star or hitch your ride on somebody else's star. And I'll tell you, Michelle, for the longest time, I hated the idea of not coming up with my own completely original content because I'm like, I'm the guy. I'm supposed to be the, coming up with the stuff and doing all these cool things. And, and I have over the years, and it's hard. It's hard, but the traction that I haven't gotten because of that was blatant, was obvious. So it's like you could have these great ideas, but if they're not getting served to anybody, cool. Like you.
That's the note I just wrote. And I've been putting myself on mute because the guys came by. My 2V neighbor next door, they're ripping up a floor. And they were like, we know you're recording, but we just need to do a little bit more. So I'm just kind of muting myself. This is the reality of when you're doing live broadcasting.
I had the lawnmower going next to me.
Right? Your lawnmower is fine. I'm like, they're literally jackhammering a floor next door. But nonetheless, the question as you were talking that I was writing, because I think that this is extremely important, is it better to be in a saturated space like makeup, beauty, hair, right? Is it better? And it sounds like you're saying the answer might be yes, to be in a space where people are looking, where people are already producing content, but now maybe you just have to do that. I'm a little different and here's how. Right? So can you just talk us through using, say, Google Trends, right? And I'm going to share the resources. If you're already in the Unchamber community, you will receive the email that has all of the different resources that Joe has just mentioned. Again, this video will stay up for 24 hours if you're not in our community. Everyone else who is in the community and is a member, you have lifetime access to all of our videos, as you know. So let's say we go on Google Trends. I look up inspirational quotes for women over 50 in business, right? I'm like super granular.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So
but
these
they
are the
have to be searching for that, right?
right. So
And
now
it's like,
talk us through, what does that look like? Take, you don't have to do it with mine, you can do it with yours, whoever. But that's what I'm thinking. As we're talking through, it sounded like you were saying, well, you don't want to be so original that nobody's looking for it. But by the same token, do you get lost in the sauce if you end up in a space that has, like, if I go and look for Black women hair care, I'm going to get a slew of folks, right? So, how do you find you if you're new?
so the so what I would do in hitching yourself to the star power, is find that topic that resonates with people over 50, or women with black, or black women with hair, care issues, hair challenges. One of the videos I just did over the weekend, she put the satin inside the hoodies and made the hoodie bigger. So like your hair is bigger, well, more than mine for sure. But even so, the satin doesn't absorb like cotton does, so it doesn't suck the water out of your hair. So combined with a bigger hoodie with satin, there's a problem that's solved, right? So finding because like getting the click is just one thing, right? And then then you got to go into like, okay, what's the format? Where are people clicking out of the video? Like, look at the retention chart, and all those things. But finding that space of something that's like underserved in that market. I mean, that's just where you go to. You can start with Google Trends, but ultimately, I think TubeBuddy for $4.50 a month, no contract. Just $4.50 for under 1,000 subscribers. I wish I probably do have an affiliate link somewhere. I don't know if I think I mean, I'm in their Facebook group, but I don't think I've ever actually applied for the affiliate link. Is one of those things where it's like you can start to do those searches and find, and it'll actually give you suggestions like, oh, let's go a little deeper into that topic, right? But it also, you have to keep it within something that everything else is going to build around your channel, right? So you have to figure out like what is the central topic of the channel, and then build around that. So in my case, it was, it's okay, I want to do, I've been doing business lessons since 2006 or 16, right? So specifically, so it's like, okay, how do I take those business lessons? Because people aren't searching for those lessons. They need to be brought those lessons. So I hitch my wagon onto the star power of Shark Tank. Yeah, is there more people than that are entrepreneurs watching Shark Tank? Absolutely. So it's very super top funnel, but the people that get it, and they're moving in and watching multiple videos and subscribing and things of that nature. So start with like, what's the, is it black women hair care? Is that what the whole channel is going to be around? Because actually the lady, I'm going to be interviewing her, I think like in a week or two, with the hoodie, she actually has a YouTube channel with like 200,000 subscribers on it, and she hasn't posted in like 8 months or something like that, and every single one was about black hair care. Even though, I mean, yeah, it's a hoodie, but that's not really what it's about, right?
Right. It's about
But
the
nobody's
underlying
looking
care.
for that,
Yeah.
so you have to find a way to like, see what people are actively looking at, and then once you actually get somebody to click on your video, now we're talking about format. Now we're talking about how do we keep them on that video? How do we keep them from not jumping out, right? And sometimes it requires, going back to the analytics and the be yourself, right? Sometimes it requires like checking your own ego. Like I wanted, in the beginning, like, welcome supers to this Biz Coach Reacts video. Let's go. And that was the 4-second version of what used to be 20 seconds. And I looked at the analytics, and you know what? I cut all of that out, went straight to the pitch, and you know what? My retention rate went through the roof. Because people got what they wanted when they clicked on the video, instead of like some guy yelling at them, welcome supers, or my guest would say, welcome supers. I cut all that out. And even in the outro, right? Shortening up the outro, or the pitch, I used to have a pitch in the video, and, to me, I don't have a big enough audience watching every single video yet to say, oh, I have the leeway to make those pitches. So I've actually started going back through the YouTube editor and cutting out those pitches for like, hey, get my free PDF file, blah, 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 to help you with your sales or to do, get more profit or whatever it is. Cut all that out so that it shrinks up the video length a little bit, like a minute or so. But that minute adds up over the course of all the videos, and the percentage and everything starts to go up. So the growth can go a lot faster because YouTube's like, oh, people made it through 30% of that video, 40% of that video, which is enough depending on how, especially if the video is like over 10, 12 minutes long, like you get people through like 30, 40%, you're good. You're good. They'll start to push that video more. So, you have to be able to check yourself in those cases, right? So sometimes you have to find like outside the box kind of ways of sharing information, and the things that the big guys and big girls are doing isn't going to necessarily work for you and for the audience that you ultimately build. And having that access to that data really helps, do it. But that's why you got to get comfortable with the analytics, get comfortable with what's working, what's not working. See, I used to think, Michelle, when I was doing the daily business lesson vlog, I was sharing that on Facebook, and I was making them under 10 minutes. So I was sharing them on LinkedIn too, and I was sharing them on YouTube, because I was like, oh, well, I just want I just want people to come to me to work on their business. Like, I don't care about building one platform. But the thing is having that one platform gives so much more credit to everything else that you're doing. Even if you're like, oh, I only have like 300 people, well, quote unquote, only 300 people liking my Facebook page. It doesn't mean you should ignore it, but if you're putting your efforts into YouTube, it's like, oh, you get to YouTube. Oh, that's where the credibility comes in. Now, I'll tell you, you asked about vanity metrics, and the biggest vanity metric that YouTube does not care about, there's two of them actually, does not really care about is, number one is subscribers. They do not care about subscribers because the algorithm pushes the video. The only way to see who you're the videos you're subscribed to is if you actually go into your subscription box. If you're not there, everything else in YouTube is based on the algorithm. So there's plenty of people that will watch your videos and watch multiple videos and never be subscribed. There's a new metric only in the last couple months, and it's under the audience tab. And that metric is called returning viewers. That is the metric. So like in my case, I have like a little over like 1,650 subscribers right now, 1,654 subscribers. But my returning viewership is over 5,000. So in that same chart, it also shows you how many, where are we at? Reach. No, I'm in the wrong thing. Audience.
So it's analytics, reach, returning viewers. Is that what we're looking?
Audience, and then returning viewers. Yeah, and it'll show you that line graph between new viewers and returning viewers. And from what I've heard, you want that to be around 2x to 3x. You don't really want it to. You always want it to be more. You want your new viewers to be 2 to 3 times more, because that means you're heading in the growth trajectory. But you don't want it to be like 9x, because then that means
nobody's
probably aren't coming back.
You're getting returns, exactly. So they watch you once and then they don't come back. Now that is great, because these were my last 2 questions heading into our wrap up time.
The other thing, Michelle, is your like and dislikes.
Okay.
So apparently, and it makes sense, because like YouTube has got like 15,000 different things that they are watching on your, analytically on your channel. So it's so much so that apparently they even track your accelerometer on your phone. So they know if it's you or if it's your kid holding the phone and knowing what kind of videos to show. Oh yeah, they know, and they are absolutely tracking all kinds of things like that. Rhonda, returning viewers it's great. It really helps you without having to go super deep into the advanced analytics, to see what, is what you're doing working. And then what I do is I go back to 90 days to see if the number is less or more. Ideally, it'll be less, right? And then in the 30, when you get to 30, it's more. And when you get to 7, it's like somewhere, usually in about half of what the 28 day would be. In my case, it's about half of what the 28 day would be. But you can see like the graph. Like I could share my screen and show all that. But the likes and the dislikes. If you like Michelle, do you like every video that you click on? Okay, I am a heavy liker. I have the channels that I watch. I click the like button all the time. Well, guess what? YouTube knows that, and YouTube weights that. They weight whether or not you are a heavy liker or not. So basically, my like is worthless versus somebody else who doesn't like videos all the time. And so it's things like that that's like it's absolutely changing the game when it comes to
game changer.
Oh, make sure you click that, smash that like button down below. Like
that was my next question.
So don't even worry about that.
You don't have to do direct calls.
No, I don't even think,
folks.
In one of my newest videos, I don't think I asked for anybody to like or subscribe. I've gotten more subscribers and likes without wasting the time. I will say this, the only time I ask people to subscribe is if it's in context to like, hey, I have this interview coming out with Michelle Talbert next week, and here's why. Get subscribed so you don't miss that video.
So you don't miss it, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you want to join us live, right?
Right.
So that kind of call to action, but that whole, okay, click here and subscribe. And
so more importantly is the end screen. Right. So the end screen is way more important. So if Michelle, because you're going to build out 52 lessons, you already should know what the 52 lessons are, right? So what you can start to do is do like a mind map of where you can map out those lessons, and then you curate what you're saying at the end of each video to push them to the next video. So when you click on 2 videos in a row, like one, and then you watch another video, that same creator, YouTube's like, ding, 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 we got a winner here. Like, let's start feeding them more and more videos. They also know if you leave the platform right after that video. So they know like what's going on, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's better for you to get them to watch that next video. Whatever you're talking about, get them to that next video. So much more important than worrying about them liking the video or subscribing, because ultimately YouTube's just going to keep if you're watching the channel, you're going to keep getting fed the channel.
Now, would you push people to a prior video that you've done that was already popular? So like, if you'd love to learn more about our backstory, like I have a video that over 200 and something people have watched because it was a documentary about our first year in business, right?
Yep.
That one is super popular. So I would put that, then you're saying at the end of those 52 weeks, or at least some portion of
if it makes sense, right? So like relate, that's what I was saying, Mike, mind map out what lessons make the most sense, have the most correlation. And what I personally use and what I've had the most luck with so far is doing like 2 videos over here on the left side. The top one being a video that I chose, that sometimes I'll refer people like, hey, you want to click on that one? And then underneath that, YouTube can recommend a video for you, which is good to have because they might have already watched that other video. And I've noticed it with some of the creators that I watch where it's like, you guys keep hammering this video about thumbnails, and it's like, how many videos do I have to watch of your channel? And then at the end, it's a call to action to a video I've already watched. And maybe I could watch it again, but so just be careful. Like if you really think about out and like map out, like, okay, this lesson goes to this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, then go all the way back to the top. Like you can get people to, stick around, especially if you're talking about like a 2 to 3 minute video. How long are you planning on doing your videos for? Each.
Yeah, right around 2 minutes or so. It's literally like 2 minutes a week, 2-3 minutes a week.
The challenge there, Michelle, is making sure that people actually watch the entire video. Because if they don't watch the video, it's going to be very hard for you to gain traction with that. Because 2 minutes, so like they only watch 1 minute. Well, then they only watch 50%. That's pretty good. But if they only watch like 40 seconds. So figuring out like the path in which to any kind of call to action or any kind of like I used to put my uh comments from my viewers like in the first like 3 minutes because I wanted people to see them. Well, after thinking about it a little bit and getting some feedback in my comments, I actually moved it to the very end, so it's like the last thing, but I tease it throughout the video that there's going to be a featured comment at the end of the video, and it has helped gain I don't know 15 to 20% higher retention at the end of my videos, and by shortening up those endings as well. So, it's just things like that. So it can be kind of tricky. So make sure that you're building a format that, and I would warn against trying to record all 50, like, oh, I'm going to bang it out in a week. And then no, take your time, do maybe 3 or 4 of them so you can get some feedback on those videos, and then start to like manipulate the videos going forward from that feedback. So you're not like locked into a year's worth of mediocre, like, this was cool, but then halfway, a quarter of the way through, I found out, oh, I should be doing this instead of this, and then, it's just not as good.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any final parting words? And this wasn't supposed to be added yet, but I'm adding it now.
Okay.
This is that throwback pic of me and Joe spending our weekend together. Yeah,
Wow.
that was a great trial by fire thing, man. That's 6 years ago. Look at us. We look like babies.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
Definitely. So I see Lapucci has one question, and then you give us sort of your final parting words of wisdom. How often should videos be posted, and for how long should they be? I think you've pretty much told us the long format can tend to work as long as people stay connected.
4 minutes to
right?
8 minutes is generally what you want to try for, because the longer the video, the more lenience YouTube gives you. But the longer the video, the harder it is to make something that people actually want to stick around and watch, right? So it's so how often should videos be posted? So I was posting videos. My schedule has ballooned up crazy. I was posting like one video every was it doing Tuesdays and Thursdays originally, and that was doing okay. And then I moved to like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so I could kind of speed it up a little bit. Excuse me. And then I moved to doing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with reaction videos, and then I started doing the newest episodes of Shark Tank rather than, because I was like, oh, I'll start at season 2 because that makes sense, because everyone's searching for season 2 back in 2009, 2010 videos, and so that didn't do all that well. But then I was like, let me do the newest videos that are coming out right then when the search, the wake up call. The wake up call actually came from you, Michelle. Now that I'm thinking about it, because you posted about the legendary everything burger, and I was like, let me go to Google Trends, and I'm like, holy poop! There is a ton of search traffic that I cannot believe that I'm missing out on, because I'm starting back at season 2 and not doing the newest season. So that's when I was like, oh man, I made this bet. So I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, look, Friday nights, I'm going to be busy. And Larry Roberts, shout out to him. I talked him into doing it with me, so I wouldn't be sitting here by myself on a Friday night at like 9 o'clock at night till like 11 o'clock at night, just recording these videos. And that started, like, everything just started to just balloon up, the views and everything, right? So finding that trend and finding a way to like get into, maybe relating your newest topic to something that people are currently searching. It's not going to work for everything, but if there's an opportunity to hitch your wagon to a star, use that star power to get to where you want to go. That's the trick, right? So how often should you be doing videos? Well, I for the longest time, for like 3 months or so, I was like, I'm going to do the news. I'm going to start doing the news, and to see if I could get traction from those news stories as well, to bring in more entrepreneurs. So I started up the Entrepreneurs. I wish I had started sooner. Where I basically I get 3 to 8 news articles. We'll read chunks of the news article and then break it down for entrepreneurs, and like relate it back to their business, relate it back to business growth, relate it back to what they could do like right now. And then what I do is I chop that video up, right? That 30-minute to 45-minute video into individual videos, upload those. So now I'm doing 5 to 8 videos a day. Plus I still do 3 reaction videos, plus Shark Tank is coming, got new episodes out now. So every Friday I'll be doing 4 more videos. I think it's like, if it's something like 200 some videos a month. If I keep up the 8 a day, 8 articles a day, I kind of want to kind of curtail that a little back to like maybe 3 to 5. And then answering, questions that come up in the live stream, because I do the Entrepreneurs as a live stream. So I chop those up and those become videos as well. And they don't all get great video, they don't get all great views, unlike this, my Shark Tank stuff, or even like The Profit or Bar Rescue. But what it does do is I'm creating this quote unquote original content that enables me to not be so reliant on, like, long term on Shark Tank, which is great. I mean, there's over 1,000 pitches. Like, I've done 160 videos. Like, I got a long way to go before I run out of Shark Tank content or any of the other TV show content. But it's important, I think, for people to know that I'm more than just reaction to that, and the people that are really there for the information are there, they're getting it. So and finally, I actually take that audio from the Entrepreneurs, and that becomes my new podcast that I upload straight to my feed. So, and that has actually increased my downloads, because they were pretty stagnant. I hadn't really put out. The only time I was putting out a new episode was when I would do an interview with a Shark Tank business owner, or pretty much that. so like, yes, I can say that again, but not for you. So like I wasn't real. My feed was pretty stagnant on the podcast side. Now I'm publishing 5 days a week on that side, and the downloads are starting to go back up to, like, I mean, the highest I think was like 70 downloads in a day, where before it was like 3 or 2 a day.
So I just know our community, because you are sort of like overachiever when it comes to content creation. So I want to just come back a little bit, just so that people don't get overwhelmed with your schedule and try to replicate what Super Joe does. What you want to do is find your own groove, like how I've mentioned. I will be posting something once a week. Once a month, we have our Unchamber meetings. Those go onto my YouTube channel for the Unchamber community, right? And so really thinking through what content makes sense to put on your page, and then remembering what Joe said early on in our conversation, that this is not necessarily a, hey, subscribe, and this is going to necessarily lead to your next client. But what this does do is help you to solidify yourself as a thought leader in a particular space, as well as shows consistency and lets people get to know you a bit through the content that you're creating. So you do not have to do 8 videos a day.
No, you don't.
You do not have to chop it up. You do not have to send some of it to your podcast. What you have to do is find your groove, what makes sense. Use the tools that are going to be in the email that I'm sending to our Unchamber members. And if you're not in the Unchamber here, you can head over and join. It's only $20 a month, and you get access to all of this juicy content. I want a bell now. Okay.
Yeah. $4.
So Joe, as we wrap up, I know that folks can find you everywhere, but where would you like them to land? Is it the website that I have crawling on the screen underneath you, superjoepardo.com?
Yes, you can get everything over at superjoepardo.com. You can reach out to me. I'm actually going to be putting together some YouTube workshops in the coming future for Icon, for Independent Podcast Conference, coming up here in the coming weeks. So, if you like that, go to indiepodcon.com as well. And we have a whole Facebook group that's been growing like a weed. It's crazy over there. One last thing I do want to point out. When it comes to relating back to what you were asking, like, how do I promote for this? What I would say is put your, do your promotion for the videos like before the video maybe comes out, to get people to go and, again, search for your name rather than like clicking on a link as much as possible. I would say with the email, you kind of probably need to put the link in there, but I would do as much as you can to to just promote like, hey, this is the, here's something that's coming out about the business, the lesson that I'm going to share for you that comes out tomorrow at this time, and make it consistent, whatever the time's going to be, make it as consistent as possible. Like I'll tell you, it is a scary thing to put out that much content in a single day. And the reason is because there's only so many spaces for YouTube to show your content. And so even your own content is going to be fighting with
Cannibalized.
itself
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
a certain degree.
Right.
But YouTube can adapt. The more, like, as long as I'm consistent, YouTube will adapt to that. They will see like, oh, he's posting his stuff, and like it'll start to say, okay, this video has got like an 80% chance of being clicked on versus this has got 78%, 72%, 60%, and it'll start to categorize like all that content, and it knows, like, you don't have to necessarily go and create like 2 channels or 3 channels because like, oh, I'm doing this and this and this. I would say everything has to still be part of the central thought of the channel. But yeah, the last thing I do want to leave everybody with is my number. It was my number 3 that I never got to. Listen for clues. Don't be sorry. We answered so many questions.
I'm not sorry. Listen for clues.
Listen for clues in the comments. So even the really crappy comments that you get that are like, kick you in the teeth hard to read, because they're just mean and like nasty comments, and I've gotten plenty of them because I know like my content is somewhat of a Trojan horse. People see the Shark Tank thing. It says, Shark Tank in the corner, and it says Shark Tank right there, and they click on it, and they didn't want this guy, this guy's face on their video. How dare you? You are the worst person ever. Just shut up and play the video. I get those comments, and that's, and that's fine. That's fine. I actually share a lot of those on Facebook as promotion to the channel. But if you really get honest with yourself, you put your ego aside and you start to read those comments and read, why are they saying that, right? Oh, you're talking over the pitch. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean because I'm talking over the entirety of the video. It means that at the time, without trying to avoid the copyright claim system on YouTube, I would pause the video a lot more often than I pause it now, because I've worked on how to circumvent that, for lack of a better word, and that has enabled me to be able to satisfy a lot more people who might otherwise be really mad that I'm talking over their video or pausing it too often or this, that, and a third. And the other thing is I stopped having guests. In fact, I have a video I just talked about in the Entrepreneur News yesterday, and I have a video going out, I think, tomorrow about it, where why am I going solo and not having guests anymore? Well, the reason being is, as when I look at the analytics, the videos where it's just me have more likes. They don't necessarily get more views because it's not a correlation. Causation is not correlation, or correlation is not causation kind of thing. But there's a more of an opportunity for me to not have to talk, right? For us to not go on a tangent, for us to not go and for me to be able to control what I say versus I can't control what my guest is going to say, and I can't necessarily control how I'm going to respond. And when we talk about respond, I'm not just talking about what comes out of the mouth. I'm talking about what my mouth looks like. Am I smiling? Am I not smiling? Am I laughing? Am I covering my face? Like, all these things play in. And then you look at somebody who's just like scrubbing through the video, like click, 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 click. They're not getting the whole story. They're just hearing what they want to hear in a hyperbolic, like, way of like, I heard this word and then that word and then I skip. And Joe's a terrible guy because he had a smile on his face the whole time and the product was about this. And that's a serious topic. And it's like, well, but I had a guess. We're trying to be, entertaining. We're trying to be not silly, but, lighthearted about it. This is a TV show for better or worse. And, but not everyone's going to take it that way. And that's one of the things like I've had to learn about. And so ultimately I made a decision, like, I need to just go forward, like, doing myself, because it's kind of doing myself a disservice in the sense that, like, I try to keep it business, but my guests, they're generally somewhere in the business realm, but they're not me, and they don't have the responsibility that's on my shoulders because they get to go home to their own, audience and channel or whatever they're doing. So it's so yeah, but listen for clues in the comments, no matter how crappy they might actually be, because you'll as much as you don't want to hear it, or you think that you're doing the best that you possibly can. There's probably a clue in there. Like if somebody says your audio is like grating on my ears, it might be because while you think your audio is fine when you listen through speakers, but put some headphones on and listen to your audio, it might not be that good. It might actually sound like it's grating on their ears, or things of that nature. Or one of the comments I used to get was like the audio is too low on the video and it's hard to hear. And I wish I could just edit the audio levels on the video in YouTube, but they don't have that feature yet, if they ever have that feature. So things like that is, it might hurt your feelings. It hurt my feelings for sure. But there's clues there that, over time, if you really pay attention, you start getting the same comments over and over and over again. No matter how crappy, there's a clue there that you can make a change. You're still muted. You're muted.
Thank you. I forgot I muted it when they were ripping up the floor.
No,
Thank you so much, Joe. This has been amazing. You've shared so much value with our community, as I knew you would, which is why I asked you to come. I am so loving watching your journey, because I remember when you launched the channel and when you hit certain milestones with the channel. And like you said, when we were inboxing about that Shark Tank episode, and I was like, Joe! So definitely thank you so much. And I love that you told us about sort of what are the vanity metrics and what to pay attention to, and how to really level up our experience as a YouTube creator. And I think you dispelled a lot of myths for us. So really appreciate that. That's very important. And that's exactly why we have the Unchamber, right? So that you can come on and tell us your expertise and share that. So we really appreciate that. And as I've said, everybody, please, you can find Joe at Super Joe Pardo everywhere, including his YouTube channel, Super Joe Pardo, right? And go to superjoepardo.com. That's his mothership, where everything spans out from there. And if you are a member of the Unchamber, you will receive all of the links that Joe mentioned in his presentation, including the IndiePodCon.com, so that you can get into his YouTube creators content that's coming up. So again, thank you all, Michelle, for joining. Joe, Super Joe, my homie, right? I appreciate you so much. And everybody else, I'll see you next month in our second Wednesday at the Unchamber at 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing you then. All right, y'all. Bye.
Bye, everyone.